Hello, everybody, and thankfully, I think we are broadcasting live to Facebook this week, and Zoom has got it right. Hooray! So, welcome to ADHD Unlocked's Friday live lunch, as ever. So, I'm Michelle Beckett, and I'm joined by the wonderful Stephanie Camilleri, as ever. So, how are you doing, Steph? Are you well? Have you got that Friday feeling?
Yes, I did. I've been for my walk, as you can kind of see, practicing self-care, keeping the tank full, very important.
Excellent. I haven't been for my walk and I haven't quite got that Friday feeling. But as we say in ADHD Unlocked, we fake it till we make it and we act as if. So if I act as if I have that Friday feeling, it will hopefully happen. But I'm a bit tired because I'm not sleeping very well, as lots of ADHDers I've been talking to this week are not sleeping very well either. I think
So
it's something
true.
the pandemic.
Mm.
So if you're not sleeping very well, you have my sympathies. You have my sympathies. So hope you're all well and you do have that Friday feeling without having to fake it. So this week we've been looking at something that's very close to a lot of parents with who have children with ADHD in their hearts, a lot of adults with ADHD. And that's ADHD myth busting, which I did say right that time, because there's so much stigma and so much misunderstanding surrounding ADHD, what it is, how it presents, how many people are affected by it, which is why so many adults and kids get missed. And we really do have an awful lot of work to do, even with health professionals, doctors, psychiatrists, teachers, let alone wider society. So we've been looking at how to approach ADHD in the workplace, what to say, how to approach ADHD with your family, with strangers, if you mention it, what it is, and busting those myths. So, but it is a huge problem, isn't it? And it kind of adds to our ADHD challenges when people don't get us, doesn't it, Steph?
Hugely. Yeah. No, I mean, one thing that people say in coaching when they first come to coaching as well is it's just such a relief to speak to someone that gets it, that they don't have to like explain themselves, because it takes so much effort for us to do that. So it's just, yeah.
And also when you might meet people in business for the first time or wherever, whatever situation, if they don't know you've got ADHD yet, you feel you have to put a little bit of that mask on because of, the non-linear conversations and, maybe curbing your natural exuberance if you're one of those more exuberant ADHDers. So it is really challenging if people don't get it. So we need to kind of start, I suppose, eking out the understanding in society. But there are a lot of people who just think it's made up. And this is one of the biggest myths that we have to bust. And I still see it, and I still see it on people's Facebook feeds and on Twitter, that it's just made up because kids are undisciplined and it's all about bad parenting. And that's one of my biggest bugbears, I suppose, as far as myth busting is concerned, is that ADHD is a made-up condition in recent years. And actually it's been described as far back as the 1700s as the condition exactly as it presents, with people being impulsive and unable to concentrate, etc. So one of my biggest bugbears is that it's actually made up, which is really, really challenging for particularly adults with ADHD who've maybe lived with it for decades without it being diagnosed. And maybe it's even threatened our lives in some way. We maybe have, all of these challenges in life to do with maybe failed relationships in the workplace. And to say it's made up is just like a really big slap in the face, isn't it, Steph? It just really doesn't help.
Yeah, and more than that, as you pointed out in the webinar on Monday, like what happens as a consequence, the consequences of undiagnosed, untreated ADHD, which you went into detail, and some of the statistics were just, I mean, very scary stuff.
Yeah, so if we just go through some of those statistics from the top of my head from memory, because the presentation's disappeared from my other screen. However, we do on average have a 10-year reduced life expectancy, and it's 25 years in the worst cases. of ADHD, reduced life expectancy. That's due to numerous factors to do with maybe dying more often in accidents, maybe not paying attention to our healthcare issues. You know, we're much more likely to smoke. We're 79% much more likely to smoke, for example. So 10 years reduced life expectancy should be a public health emergency. And the fact that so many doctors are missing ADHD is almost criminal. And people going to their GPs and saying, look, I've got anxiety and depression. And this is more often than not the challenges that adults with ADHD have. They have no idea they've got ADHD. They might have problems with anxiety, depression, problems at work, problems in their relationships. They may be trying to calm their mind in the evening using alcohol. They maybe have low self-esteem. They maybe feel that they haven't lived up to their potential and that other people are kind of successful in their careers or their marriages or as parents, and you just feel like a massive failure, feel overwhelmed, feel guilty, feel shamed that you procrastinate, have those codependent issues. And if you look at all this together, health professionals should be having this at the top of their list as ADHD, given how common it is. And they just don't, do they, Steph? How many times have we seen this?
Oh, horrifying. Yeah. And remember at the APPG, the GPs are the gateway to these to the diagnosis. And so it's crucial. I think, what was the lady's name? The parliament, I don't remember, the minister. She was Minister for Mental Health.
Minister for Mental Health, yes.
Yeah,
Minister
Jackie Gold.
Don't ask me to remember her
my
name.
I know name.
Let's hope she's not watching. But
yeah.
I did get a hug from a Tory minister and made her cry. Boom. Yes, I cannot think of her name.
But she said that it was absolutely crucial and that the priority should be on educating GPs about ADHD. It's crucial.
Yeah. GPs and also teachers and also therapists, because I met somebody this week who, until they read some of our stuff and some of the stuff I posted on ADHD Action on the internet, and being introduced to me made them aware of ADHD, they suddenly read it all and went, that's me. Why has my therapist not picked this up? I've been going to them for years with all the problems that I just listed, maybe anxiety, depression, codependency, all of these things, and feeling different. And he said to me, I just always felt different. And I said, yes.
Yeah.
So it should be really bloody obvious, but we've got people going to GPs, and I've seen it in the adult ADHD group. Somebody said on a thread, GP said I couldn't have it because I could finish a book.
Yeah.
This is one of my other big bugbears about ADHD myths, is that we can't concentrate. And if we're interested in something, we can concentrate better than you normal people. We just can't control it. We have this hyper focus where we can really concentrate, and it's really difficult to pull us away. And in terms of book finishing, this is very ADHD. I queued at midnight for the last Harry Potter book, read it straight through without sleeping or eating until I'd finished it at 2:00 the following afternoon.
Yeah.
So, I could not be torn away from that book. So there's just so much ignorance among clinicians that's really, really harming us. And so much ignorance in terms of women and girls as well. We do know that there's 5% of kids have ADHD, okay, statistically, but only 1.5% of boys are treated in this country for ADHD, and 0.36% of girls are treated. So this other myth is that children particularly are over-treated, and it's over-medicalized, and they're over-medicated, and they're over-diagnosed. But that could not be further from the truth. So I suppose the main myths that we need to bust here are that ADHD is very common. So 5% of kids and 3% of adults on average. Most of those are undiagnosed and untreated. And for adults, it's about 90% probably don't have a clue they've got it.
Yeah.
And this is huge risk, with 10 times the suicide risk. 10 times the suicide risk for adults, and as teenagers, the risk for self-harm and drug addiction and teenage pregnancy are Massive. So this is absolutely criminal. It's a public health emergency. So we're underdiagnosed. The medication does not turn us into zombies. It's very, very subtle and just makes us function a bit better, less overwhelmed, able to concentrate. And it's not made up. And we can concentrate. And we're not always hyperactive. I know I seem a bit hyperactive today, but the statistics are that only 15% of kids present with any physical hyperactivity in general that's noticeable, and only 5% of adults. So mostly it's hyperactivity of the mind. So what we need to start saying to people is, what you think of as ADHD is not ADHD. It presents very, very differently. You've got a very narrow picture, generally, of a hyperactive, disruptive, naughty boy more often than not, and not maybe a very quiet middle-aged woman, for example, who's quite introverted, who struggles with anxiety and depression, and maybe has a very tidy house, because if they don't keep it very, very tidy and organized, they'll kind of lose control, but they still have ADHD. And this is what we need to get across, is it's not what you think it is. So how we start doing that when there's so much stigma is a bit chicken and egg, I guess, Steph, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really difficult. We did touch upon this in the webinar, the workplace webinar we did this week, which I kind of, we introduced what ADHD kind of really looks like, and a functional definition that Dr. William Dodson created around the interest-based nervous system. An interest-based nervous system trying to function in an importance-based nervous system environment that the workplace is, but really kind of hitting home that, ADHDs, we can very much pay attention, perform extremely well, but that it is very much situational. And those elements that we discussed in the webinar, those elements, if they're present, in terms of our mood and performance, we've got absolutely no problems. In fact, we excel. And so, but it's about, well, one, the employee in that situation, in the webinar, knowing about their ADHD and knowing that about their ADHD, and then being able to communicate that to their employer that often just, doesn't want to listen. I mean, the number of people, some of my clients that have come to me, just they're struggling in the workplace, or they're being discriminated against, and they're just in a hopeless situation. And these are doctors, doctors, lawyers, but like HR, across all industries, but even governmental departments, which I won't maybe name right now, but I'm horrified. Then their disability confidence status is not well deserved. Maybe more about that later, perhaps. But it is horrifying. It's horrifying,
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And given that it's deadly and we've got 10 times the suicide risk, and I don't, anecdotally, and there's not been enough research done into this, I know so many ADHD adults who have either attempted suicide or come very close to suicide, or have actually died by suicide. So this is deadly, as well as we've got, this cohort of people, 5% kids, maybe 2.5 to 3% of adults who have these wonderful traits that society can really use. We're society's entrepreneurs, innovators, creatives, sports stars, pop stars, all of these people that have so much to give in society with our different brains and thinking outside of the box. But because society doesn't understand our challenges and support us through them, we are missing out. And actually, I argue that we could increase GDP in the country, as well as save all the money in the criminal justice system, the education system, the health system. Because if you think how much money, the pop industry brings in, and how many of our ADHD pop stars there are, and just in terms of income, for inventions and entrepreneurs and all of this thing, Richard Branson, for example, we support ADHDers and we make the country not only richer financially, but richer culturally, is what I would like to argue. So we just really need to bang the drum, but that's hard because of the stigma. Really, really hard. But yeah, I've got on my high horse, haven't I? Sorry.
No, not high horse. This is what you do best, Mish. This is yeah. I know, and it's talking about it again. It reminds you, doesn't it? It's funny, Mish, how when we don't talk about these things, out of sight, out of mind. And then as soon as we start talking about this again, how present and how urgent. And I guess that's the great thing about ADHD Unlocked, because like with everything in our lives with ADHD, unless it's in sight, it's kind of out of mind. And so by, we're kind of focusing all the challenges that, we need to be aware of and that we can address. It's helping us address those challenges. So it is about keeping these things in mind and, keeping the conversation going, supporting each other, and definitely the whole together we are better, particularly around raising awareness. It very much applies to here. So that's what we're doing through ADHD Unlocked. That's what, all of us need to do.
And it's about that community as well that understands and learn and keeping it front of mind, supporting each other. And on the Wednesday chat meeting that we have every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, one of our new members just said I was so scared about joining. I didn't know what to say, but I just enjoyed myself so much. And it's so refreshing to think that everybody has the same sort of challenges. I felt like I was amongst people with the same brain as me. And it's just wonderful that we found each other, because a lot of us felt so alone all those decades and felt like we were just wrong and different and a failure, because we didn't know there was anything different about us to celebrate and to support. So do join us. We've still got the special offer on. So it's only £23 a month if you pay monthly, and about £139 after the whole year if you join now. And you get so much stuff. There's loads of resources in the portal, 16 weeks worth of videos and presentations to support you with all sorts of challenges, and we're building on that every week, as well as the meetings you get and the Smash It Procrastination Buster sessions every Tuesday.
I love the Smash It. That's my personal favorite. The Smash It sessions, getting those things done. When I run mine, I actually do it as well at the same time, and I'm able to get things done that I've been sitting on for ages. But it's so easy and it's enjoyable. Even just those sessions are worth their weight in gold, I think. So definitely.
It's like when you have to tidy your house because somebody's coming. That's what the Smash It sessions are like. Somebody's watching you do the job, so you can't get away with not doing it.
Yeah,
what we need. It's what we need. But if you can, try and raise awareness with one person that doesn't quite get ADHD this week. Try and raise awareness and see and bust some ADHD myths. But do join us over the weekend. Next week, what's the topic that we're looking at, Steph, in the ADHD Unlocked community for members?
I think we're going to look at anxiety next week, which I think we can all relate to. Maybe you don't think you would relate to it, but as we talk about it, you'll realize that a lot of the things that we do stem from the anxiety that we can have as a result of having ADHD, but also it can come separately too. So we're going to talk about that. And then I think next week's webinar at 11 a.m. on Thursday, that's Michelle, you're doing that one, I think.
Yes. So I'm following up with a much longer session on myth busting. So if you are interested in today's session, next week's special public webinar is 11 o'clock next Thursday. And it's all about myth busting and how you can tackle comments from people that just don't get it or are really ignorant, and what to say in more detail. So that's what we'll do. But next week, managing anxiety, which is really important for so many of us, because so many of us suffer with anxiety. But yes, keep well and sleep well, top up your tanks, and do join us over the weekend, and we'll see you all next week. So thank you, Steph, as ever, and keep busting those ADHD myths on behalf of us all and the entire community. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.